the argument that Trump is going to use this $100 million that he's gathered since the beginning of the year, when you have, by the way, an organization as big as the Trump organization and the amount of debt that they have, $100 million is chicken shit. You're in trouble if that's the take. Now, we know that they made $2.6 billion as a company over the time that he was in office. But again, I'm going to bet on most of it's gone. And half, like, Trump and Eric and Don Jr. and Ivanka and Jared and I guess Tiffany, if they even care, can live off of just the branding money and pretend to be billionaires for at least a decade if he didn't go to jail or some other shit happens, okay? That there is definitely room for them to live comfortably off the money that comes in off what they've done and continue the illusion that they are actually well-to-do. But in the case of, Donald himself, the idea that $100 million is a guarantee that he's actually made, he's doing well, is offset entirely by the fact that this asshole is going to be touring with Bill O'Reilly. Trump is going to be touring this fall with Bill O'Reilly. Now, if there's a list of things you don't do while president, even shadow president, it's tour with Bill O'Reilly. If you can think of all the things that happen when you're president of the United States that Trump has done that shouldn't happen, like meeting with Kim Jong-un and shit like that. One of the things that's way high on the impossible list is, of course, the sitting president or the sitting shadow president with his shadow cabinet is obviously got time to tour the country with 1/18 packed stadiums, being interviewed by Bill O'Reilly about the things that matter. But Bill O'Reilly has got bigger fish to fry right now. He's not even prepping for his Trump interviews, which they're going to have biting questions in them. This is O'Reilly predicts this is what dooms Biden's re-election chances. This is it, folks. This is the thing that keeps Biden from getting re-elected. Okay? Here it comes. And O'Reilly would know because his contract at Fox was not renewed. So,
a couple of quick thoughts from you.
Does he have any? I guess how quick can you make them? I don't have a lot of time for this.
The January 6th hearing this week.
As we discussed, I think last week, this is just a play to ruin Donald Trump's reputation even further. So,
yeah, he doesn't need any help from us. And if it wouldn't work, fuck you worried about? I mean, obviously he thinks this because Benghazi was just designed to ruin Hillary Clinton's chances of running for president.
Can't run again next time around, and to put the Republican Party on the defensive for the 2022 midterms.
So strategically, it's a smart move.
Okay.
The composition of the committee, it's a farce. So why would it? I don't even pay attention to it right now.
Well, here's the thing. Bill, can I call you Bill? Because using your whole name gives me a gas. It's like a weird nauseated feeling. It makes my pancreas hurt. I don't know why. I pay attention to you and Glenn and Mike Lindell and even Trump himself, not because you matter, but because sometimes you say shit that trickles into other stuff that makes people think stuff that's erroneous and bullshit, and I like to head it off at the pass and call it out as bullshit before it gets a chance to get up out of its chair. You know what I mean? And so you don't really matter, especially Bill O'Reilly. I mean, come on. If there's... Honestly, Glenn Beck and Greg Kelly have almost no impact on the electorate. Honest to God. Almost none. They are preaching to the choir, and half the time it's just recycled. Even the choir members are going, I know this. I know the melody. Just hum it. I'll sing. Fuck off. Bill O'Reilly's concerns about any of this stuff absolutely don't. No one is taking their cues from Bill O'Reilly on anything. But Bill O'Reilly has a lot of money left over, so he can buy his way onto Glenn Beck's show.
No, I mean, it's ridiculous.
This is an ad. What you're listening to, for the record. Glenn Beck doesn't call him up and go, come on over. We need to fill some space. I love talking to you. You have such great insights. No. This is sales for BillO'Reilly.com. See? Which no one will go to.
Week, every little girl in America has a new icon and hero. Simone Biles. Comments.
Glenn, just tell you what. Pick some incendiary bullshit that I have no right or means to speak on, and then just let me go.
I don't have any comments.
Well done. Except to say...
on Miss Biles, because I don't know what her situation is.
He doesn't know the name. He doesn't know what she does. He doesn't know what you're talking about. He doesn't watch the Olympics.
I think it's unfair, commentators like me and you, to, give analysis on something. We just don't know what the woman's mental situation is.
100%.
So
I agree 100%. Then why the fuck did you ask him, you toad? You were waiting for some woman shitting on moments. Is that a word? Some misogyny, just like rampant, like Bill O'Reilly's just like a misogyny paper towel dispenser, just hunk, and then you reached up under and there was nothing, and you were like, God damn it.
all be compassionate. I think that's the right way to go there.
Okay, so I agree with you. However, I would add...
I agree with you. However, no, you don't.
Because the story broke while I was on the air, and I said, please don't bash her. Please don't bash her. Remember, she went through horrid experiences. So I agree with you 100%. But I'd like to add, but that does not make her a hero or what...
Fuck off. Look, doing the stuff that Simone Biles does physically and in competition is an extraordinary feat of courage. Throwing your fucking body upside down, sideways, and around in a way that you could easily, especially if you lose track of where you are, land on your fucking neck and kill yourself or paralyze yourself forever. Takes a tremendous amount of courage and drive and talent and hard work. Hard, long fucking hours. On and on, trying and failing and trying and failing. There's a reason why when you start that shit, you do the whole thing over a giant pit of foam. But beyond that, and that's something everybody can understand, okay? Everybody can, even when you fail at the Olympics, people are like, fuck, that stuff, that's hard. Holy shit, right? Everybody watching the Olympics when they, hit a landing, even the biggest dickhead, if you really push them, when they're like, that was wobbly. What kind of landing was that? Asshole, do you realize what they just did? You had your goddamn mind. They go, well, within context, they're supposed to be the best in the world. I was talking in that context, but man, you know what I mean? Like, you could walk them back from that. Mental illness and mental health are areas where it's so amorphous. It's one of the reasons why we have the hardest time talking about this shit, is because there is no direct measure. There is no scale. There is no absolute where you can look at it and go, oh yeah, look at that. Her psychology oil is low. She's a quart low on confidence. You know what I mean? Like, you can't. It's up to the person. And when it comes to combining those two things, it's an extraordinary challenge for any human being. Okay, period. That's the baseline. The heroic part of it is when the world knows what you do physically is a heroic act and is very difficult and is challenging beyond measure, and saying, you know what, my head isn't straight, so I can't do that right now. that I would hurt myself, and I know better. And none of you can see inside my head. None of you can see what's going on. None of you can understand that challenge. None of you can feel my equilibrium being off, my inability to peg that point or whatever. And so saying, I can't do this because of something that's going on in my head right now is in and of itself at the Olympics, is an enormously heroic act. Because there is no material basis. You have to be courageous and bold to say it in the first place. You have to be, you have to know that, more than half of the people watching are going to call bullshit. And whereas if you just fell and broke your foot, they go, oh, that sucks. Is golf on? Right? How quick do people change the channel when an athlete, injures themselves mildly? But if they injure themselves really bad, watch it on a fucking loop, right? Because you understand the physical challenge of it. If like figure skating, skateboarding, any of that shit, once people start falling down too much, the channel changes. Because people can't stand to watch people get hurt trying that shit. So having the guts to go, you know what, I'm right here at the line, and I know in this moment, right now, it doesn't mean I'm not capable of doing what I'm doing, but in this moment, right here, something's up, and it's out of my control. And until I get it under control, I'm not going to risk my fucking neck, and neither should you. This is not about the daily challenge. We're all daily heroes. I get up and I make sure that I go to my job so my kids can be fed, and that daily hero bullshit. That's just being a person. It has value, but don't exaggerate. We're not Simone Biles flinging our fucking bodies up in the air and turning it, twisting it, and trying to land on our feet like that. And not the base of our fucking spine. And so when somebody in Simone Biles' position comes out and says, I can't do this right now. I can do this. But I can't do it right now. And I'm not going to harm myself because my amazing ability doesn't line up with your medal ceremony. That is heroic. It takes more heroism to explain the unfathomable to someone than it does to just jump and break your fucking neck. And the Glenn Becks and the Bill O'Reillys of the world, in all honesty, would be happy to watch video of her injuring herself, landing and smashing her shoulder. And she's back in, by the way. She just was out for the team. She didn't want to fuck up the team because if they lost a point because she landed wrong, she would deny them the possibility. And by the way, she was right. They got a silver. If she had performed like she was performing and leading up to that with the team, if she fucks up herself, this is the main part. She didn't say I'm out as an individual necessarily. I'm just out of the team part because my fuck up is just my fuck up. If I lose the gold, that's on me. If I don't get a bronze or whatever, fuck off. Who cares? That's my problem. I choked at the Olympics. That's on me. But my team is relying on me. And if I don't feel reliable, someone reliable should be in there. And if she hadn't stepped out, she might have lost a point directly from, either, a bad dismount or what have you. One of the ones where they literally can scissor off a point from a failed move. And that point would have been enough to deny them not just the silver, but also the bronze. That's great. That's greatness. If you're going to fuck up your team, if you're going to fuck up your own life, whatever. Fling yourself into the air and land on your fucking shoulders. It's none of my goddamn business. But if you're on a team and they are relying on you for a hair's breadth of points in a gold, silver, and bronze competition, You have a responsibility to fuck off. And the fact that you do it based on, like, I don't know about my ankle, bullshit. I don't know about my head. And you guys can't even look at, they can't show an x-ray and go, yeah, clearly, she got a brain cramp. That takes more bravery and courage to admit to that in that circumstance and not fuck up your teammate's life. She's the oldest person in the team. In a field of athletes that are like average, 16, 17 years old most of the time? This is just fucking nonsense. And this gelatinous dipshit in his ever-revolving outfit branding bullshit that he does all the time, and Bill O'Reilly with his $32 million rape payout can Thelma and Louise, as far as I'm concerned. What a douchebag. All right. Sorry, I don't know why I flipped my screen.
She did heroic. It makes it understandable, but it doesn't quitting does not make you a hero.
She didn't quit, dumbass. She recognized there are alternates for this very purpose. She didn't quit. She stepped aside because she wasn't up to the task, which is incredibly brave and courageous. If you're gonna fuck it up for everybody, step back. These days, you're rewarded for first into the breach. If you're just like, I'm ready. This is my day. I'm ready to storm the castle. But anybody who's like, not me, I would fuck it up. You guys go ahead. I'm going to be a drag on you guys. Do you realize how right now in 2021, how much bravery that takes? Quitting.
Understand, I can have compassion, and it might have been the right thing for her to do. And
It was. So right now, start landing the shut the fuck up plane, okay? Right now. It was the right thing to do. So just start doing, prepare the cabin for cross-check, and bring down the landing gear on shut the fuck up. Right now. Stop where you are, cut your losses, and stop being an asshole, Glenn.
I'm not going to judge it. But when...
I'm not going to judge it, but proceed to judge. Asshole Chick-fil-A version of Colonel Sanders.
Press comes out and everybody says, oh, she's so brave and heroic.
She is. Because of all the reasons I previously stated, which, by the way, Glenn Beck knows. And by the way, this asshole has taken mental health breaks.
Used to think when Nancy Kerrigan was clubbed in the legs with a pipe, and yet she went out and skated anyway.
It was a physical injury she could skate through, fuckhead. I'll tell you what. If during her routine, where she went out anyways and skated, if Nancy Kerrigan had to skate with Tanya Harding doing laps around the fucking rink carrying a pipe, then you'd have a point. But you don't, so shut the fuck up.
I thought that was something to aspire to, not to get there and then quit. And again, I don't blame her. I'm just saying.
No. Yes, you do. You're calling her a quitter. That's blame. I mean, to call this childish is rude to children.
The reaction from the press making that in heroics is the wrong message.
And here's an observation. If Ms. Biles...
Oh, boy. He wasn't going to say anything, but now he is.
was a conservative woman, that reaction would not be that way from the press.
Based on what? By the way, he means white. Besides conservative. No. If, what's the asshole swimmer who won't get vaccinated and who's not wearing a mask? If he had to step out because he was having mental health issues and he was having panic attacks that he might drown, he doesn't know which way is up when he's swimming, I'd go good for him. And?
Yeah, sadly I agree.
Yes, I think it's sad that you agree too, because it means you're both equally stupid.
Governor Cuomo coming out this week saying, I never lied, and that's why Justice Department is saying...
By the way, this is his Italian-American impersonation.
That they're not going to do any more investigation.
You know, if anyone...
Bill O'Reilly, author of Killing the Mob. He's scraping the bottom of the barrel now.
One believes that politics doesn't influence law and order in this country.
You think?
And they're living in the land of Oz. So Cuomo...
Great analogy. I and everybody else here are united in going land of Oz.
Is going to go down to his grave saying, I never did anything wrong. No matter what evidence is presented, what the...
Sorry, are we talking about Trump now?
Situation is. That's what narcissists do.
Go on.
Okay? They never do anything wrong, no matter what the situation or the evidence is. And that's it. You can tie up Andrew Cuomo in a narcissist bow, and there you go.
You could tie him up in a narcissist bow, and there you go. Bill O'Reilly, you truly are the BTK of analogists.
Biden Justice Department is dropping the charges on the Chinese military spies that were arrested here in America. Comment?
The Biden Justice Department does not want any problem with China, nor does President Biden himself.
They just expelling?
So no matter what China does short of invading Taiwan, you're going to have a passive response to it. It's clear that...
Sorry. You support a president who, while he was in office, either believed in reality or sold the idea that the Chinese attacked us with a bioweapon, and months after floating that idea and supporting it in rally speeches and continuing to this day to carry it out, sold them the largest shipment of pork, corn, soybeans, and beef in our nation's history. Sorry, go back to the thing about narcissists again.
President Biden is so weak that he is...
How weak is he? He's so weak, he's got 7 days. President Biden is so weak. If he had a twin brother, his name would be Fortnite. President Biden is so weak.
Not able to confront anything. And I want to make one...
President Biden is so weak, he's not able to confront anything. Is that the... Let's see. That may be the case. Let's see. Let's see. I'm going to go over here, if I may, and grab I have a bunch of windows. Lots of this. You'll get used to the idea that I have a lot of icons. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Biden doesn't want to do anything to upset China. You know what I mean? Just doesn't, anything that would upset China. Biden's not gonna. He doesn't want to do that. Let's see. Let's see. 1 second. Let's try another one, shall we? And obviously, if it's if there's one area where Biden is really not going to mess with China, it's definitely on trade. Now, I have to almost apologize to what's left of Bill O'Reilly's brain. But he definitely is intellectually incapable of grasping. Al, do you recommend rubbing alcohol dip for sweaty scrotum immediately after showering, asking for a friend? Karate Joe, no, I would not. I would go with hydrogen peroxide and gin. That's the home remedy from the old country. So to understand the administration's new stance, look at the South Korean semiconductor firm Magnachip. Want to understand the Biden administration's China strategy? Here you go. I'll just blow this up a little bit so you guys can see it. Set aside the South China Sea and the Quad. A more useful marker the administration's thinking may come from a South Korean company with a few in Washington. That a few in Washington have never heard of. Magnachip, based in South Korea, produces a type of semiconductor needed in most advanced screens, such as those for the newest smartphones. It's a small company with revenues of about $500 million last year, a tiny fraction of chip industry behemoths like Intel or Taiwan's TSMC. But the Biden administration is now blocking its purchase by a Chinese private equity fund. The fate of the deal will send a major message about how Washington is thinking about the United States' economic relationship with China. Since taking power in January, U.S. President Joe Biden has quietly shelved discussion of decoupling, the idea advocated by some aides of the former U.S. President Donald Trump, of severing economic ties with China. Talk of a trade war with China has been abandoned too, although Trump's tariffs remain in place for now. Biden is presiding over a deepening of Wall Street's ties with China, continuing a Trump-era trend. The main new initiative from the Biden administration has been to issue a new report on America's supply chains, which mentions China but frames the challenge as building resilience, not bashing Beijing. To understand the meaning of the Magnachip deal against this background, start with the company itself. The display technology that Magnachip specializes in is a small slice of the semiconductor market. These display drivers are important but far less pervasive than the logic or memory chips found in nearly every device or data center. Magnachip's technology is advanced but isn't particularly unique. If you were to draw up a priority list of companies that you didn't want to fall in China's hands, Magnachip wouldn't be at the top of the list. Regionally, South Korea produces a big chunk of the most advanced display drivers like Magnachips, which are plugged into smartphones and other consumer products. China, which manufactures many of the smartphones and tablets that incorporate these displays, by the way, I would say assembles, but this is Foreign Policy magazine or whatever, saying this, would like to bring in the market as part of its effort to move up the value chain from simply assembling devices, look at that, to building their high-value components. So it was not a surprise when a Chinese investment firm called Wise Road Capital submitted an offer to buy Magnachip this year. It's possible to see this proposed deal as a simple business transaction. It is also possible to interpret it through the lens of Beijing's state-backed semiconductor strategy. China's Communist Party leadership has identified semiconductors as a focus of competition with its foreign rivals. Government plans such as Made in China 2025 are pouring billions of dollars of state subsidies into China's chip industry. Chinese President Xi Jinping recently named his top economic advisor Liu He as the country's chip czar, charged with helping China's semiconductor industry reducing reliance on foreign tech, given the semiconductors power everything from advanced computing to autonomous driving to new military technologies. Beijing semiconductor efforts aren't only about building smartphones. So we are stopping China from moving from the assembling of stuff to the actual manufacturing. The problem with a lot of people's conversations about China has been the whole idea of made in China. when in reality, most stuff like that is assembled in China. Very little of it is actually made there. A lot of it is made in South Korea or Thailand or Taiwan even, or even the west coast of the United States. A lot of chips are actually made on the west coast of the United States, and some even in Texas. And they're shipped over to China to be put together. And then they're sent back. But they come back with this, made in China rule, which was originally a way to kind of help buyers differentiate between stuff they were going to buy that was American versus buying Chinese, and if they wanted to buy American, it would be marked with it. But the made part, as opposed to assembled, which was part of the conversational argument about whether it mattered or not, and didn't quite look good. Like, why are we? The business community didn't want people to realize that they were doing that part of it in China, and that why couldn't you do it? Why can't you just assemble it here? You're making the chips here. Why don't you just pay some people to put the fucking thing together, right? That to argue that let's make it made in China. That's actually less worse. So that was the argument, and what it made was what it created was this idea that made in China was a real thing, that is what we're competing against, opposed to assembled in China. China's trying to move out of the assembly zone and into the actual made part, and when they're doing that, they're trying to buy up these little companies that they own that might not even be there. Because when they move it to China, it kind of falls apart because they can't even trust their own supply chain. So what they're going to try to do is buy up these little companies in other countries and let them just stay there. So there you go. You notice neither Beck or O'Reilly ever get any input from anyone else? Yes. Yes, Cosmic Rose brought up the third officer to commit suicide, Gunter Hashida. There's a GoFundMe. I think I tweeted out earlier. There was attached to one of the tweets that I put out. I'm looking forward to more information. It's such a weird thing because it's a private matter. It could be wholly unrelated, but I think a lot of people, because it was a suicide, are wondering what relation it may or may not have had to that day. And the other two clearly seem to, and it's this odd balance of the personal information and how heartbreaking this must be for the family, related to whether or not it is a part of what happened on that day, or what part they felt they played or didn't play in that day too. So it's rough. Anyways, sorry, back to these two idiots pretending to know shit about anything Biden's doing with Taiwan. And basically, if they don't see the president running around with a giant rubber mallet, like a squeaky toy, banging it on things, nothing is being accomplished because they can't comprehend this part of it. You know what I mean? To them, this is like watching chess from a satellite.
And this is an important point about the COVID discussion we had in the first half hour that I hope people heard, and will go to your website.
No, I didn't hear it, and I don't care to. I know you don't have a point. I know he doesn't have a point.
At my website, BillO'Reilly.com, to listen to.
No, I know you paid for the spot to be on, and if you or Glenn Beck were capable of actually having real friends, which you aren't, you wouldn't have to pay him. I'm on Stuttering John's show quite often because we're friends, and he asked me to. Now, when I'm on, he asks me if I want to promote or anything because he's a nice guy. But Glenn Beck's not a nice guy, and you're not a nice guy, and so here you are buying your way onto Glenn Beck's show so he can pay for this giant billboard that no one will put up.
You post these conversations.
So he has to hang it in his garage, his two-tiered garage studio.
President Trump was brought down by COVID. He lost.
What was he? Because I would go so far as to say President Trump was brought down by being a piece of shit, and COVID happened and laid it bare. It made people who were maybe less aware what a piece of shit he was, what a professional fuck-up he's been his whole life. And it presented an opportunity, however sad and destructive, where a lot more people could see what a colossal fuck-up he was. Because if he'd have left the pandemic response team in place, arguably,
because of
he wouldn't have been Donald Trump, I think is the real answer.
If COVID had not appeared, he would have won re-election because of the economy was wrong. Biden's going
No, As a matter of fact, the economy was entering a recession in February, and if he wasn't able to hide that recession behind COVID, if the economic downturn hadn't been swamped by COVID, it would have been obvious. As a matter of fact, there's an argument that his 15 days to stop the spread and why he finally agreed to the shutdown was that the stock market and the economy were already taking a shit. This was getting worse, and that it was better to let it crash and blame it on COVID than let anybody get a look at his entire at how poorly his economic strategy came out. As a matter of fact, there was, and I will bring this up in just one second. There was a let's see. I'm gonna find it. I can find it. It's right here. Don't worry. I'm gonna find it. Oh yeah. Hold on. Let's see. I'll just look up Trump. GDP growth, I think it was. Let's see if this graphic comes up. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so here's why Donald Trump was. Oh crap! Hold on, I gotta back up. Here's why. Open this thing up for you. Click. Here's why Trump was lucky COVID happened when it did. See this little sentence that's in blue up here? GDP growth under Trump was the worst since Hoover. See, Kennedy, that's the biggest one. That's the top one, man. 5.5 growth under Kennedy. What party was he with? I can't remember. I'll have to look it up. It's probably in a book. Here's Obama coming in at 2.1, even with the recession. That's not from the bottom of the recession to the top. That's generalized growth from, if you level out the period caused by the recession. If you get back on track to where they were over the 8 years, still 2.1. It would have been much higher if the Bush administration hadn't basically handed him this hand grenade and just said, deal with it. Here's Trump's down here, 1.6. If Trump had to run on that, he'd have fucking lost. And he deserved it. That had nothing to do. I know JFK was a Dem. I was kidding. Just kind of rubbing it in, you know what I'm saying? That right there. That's Donald Trump's legacy. Right there. 1.6. And that's even with the tip up he got from 2.1, which is a rise over Bush, that came in. Look at Clinton over here. Killing it. Surplus. Wait, who burned the surplus? Oh, look who was getting us out. And by the way, notice how this happens? We come in here. Here's Kennedy, Johnson. Nixon craters it. Democrat. Here comes Nixon. Ford following him. Kind of getting it a little, leveled out. Basically, all this good that was happening, Nixon fucked up. And then Ford was like just normalizing again. Carter brings it up. He and Reagan are tied. Think about who you think of the economic power of a presidency. The growth, what happened? What happened economically during these two presidencies? One was 4 years. The other was 8 years. Carter and Reagan are tied. Now, beyond the fact that Jimmy Carter is Mr. Rogers and Bob Ross's spirit animal, and the fact that he built houses for the homeless with his bare hands, and still would be if he wasn't, dinosaur bone age right now, and COVID wasn't happening. He'd be out there with a goddamn hammer. He's going to be pounding a nail when he dies. Like, that's what kind of guy Jimmy Carter is. A good soul. 4 years, same economic growth, 3.4% during Carter as there were during 8 years of Reagan. Think about that and think about how the right likes to shit on Jimmy Carter. Inflation, OPEC, all this shit. It was terrible. It's like, if you want to, like, Carter is the gold standard for shitting on Democratic presidents. And in 4 years, Jimmy Carter had the same economic growth that Reagan took 8 years to do. You could argue that Reagan could literally flatlined during half his presidency. Any GDP growth. Just treading water, hoping not to get swamped by shitty policy. Voodoo economics. That more so than, like, who doesn't know that Trump shit the bed. The man is a professional fuck up. His whole life, he's always been handed a golden egg, and he's found some way to crack it, spend it, or snort it. Look at this. But obviously Trump's a fuck up. But look at this little piece right here. This is kind of amazing. This is arguably the biggest standout holy shit moment in this chart. Right? You know, this is, think of the narrative you've grown up with most of your adult life. Certainly since the Gingrich contract with America. This is huge right here. It took Reagan 8 years to have the same economic growth and GDP that America had under Carter's single term. And technically speaking, Trump had less than half of Carter's economic growth. Carter more than doubled, Trump's economic growth. Jimmy Carter oversaw twice as much economic growth in the United States as Donald John Trump. Maggots, Trumpsters, I'm talking to you. The next time he says, no one's seen an economy like this, greatest economy ever. He's the worst since Hoover. Even with more people and higher employment because of the employment measures put in by the Obama administration to recover from the previous downturn. And then, even beyond your kind of petty back and forth about Obama and his problems. And by the way, Obama comes in with a cratered economy. Imagine what he could have done. And then, here you go. Look at this little guy. Look at that. Look at Jimmy Carter. Donald Trump, Jimmy Carter. Donald Trump, Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter, 8 years of Reagan. Now, I know you think there's alternative facts. I know that it's you felt better when Trump was in, so it must have been better, even though you weren't doing better, at least in the growth area, as you were when Jimmy Carter was president. Thank you, Hype Train, for recognizing that not only other people have been pointing out this little fact that I just showed you, the whole Trump shit the bed zone, but the fact that Reagan and Carter was tied. Did anybody else in the coverage of this particular graph, anybody else point that out? Anybody else point out to you today on Twitter or anywhere else the holy shit aspect of the fact that Jimmy Carter in 4 years had the same growth as 8 years of Reagan. Anybody else besides me? You're welcome. Worth the price of admission. You can thank the people who gave $6.66 at the Super Chats and the people who are giving us hype trains and are subscribing and sharing the show, because they're the ones who made this portion of the show possible at all. Thank you, Culture Sculptor, for noticing. That's what I do here. I bring a perspective. You know how people are like, I try to give my own perspective. Fuck that. If your own perspective is exactly the same as everybody else that I might see talking on this issue, I might click past it. But I'm telling you, that's the big part of this chart. Because the narrative that gave you Donald Trump will be a great president because he's was born in, Nixon wasn't that bad, and Reagan was awesome. Both of which are bullshit. Because there's Nixon, and there's Kennedy, and there's Carter, and there's Reagan. And by the way, Clinton. I mean, come on. Now, granted, birth of internet, growth versus the initial growth of internet, coupled with Iraq War and the attack on 9/11, and then recovering after 2008. But notice how this happens, and then Nixon falls off, and then it starts to grow again until Bush 1 fucks it up, and then Clinton recovers, and then Bush 2 fucks it up, and then it's starting to grow again under Obama. If we'd had another Democrat right there, what the fuck do you think this chart would have looked like? Exactly. But then we get another Nixon. Only dumb Nixon. So I just think it's important to bring that up, if I may, as these assholes continue to tell us. Please, Bill, go on. Tell us, because I know how I would spend $32 million if I had it. It'd be really fun. It really would. There'd be a lot of neat shit around. I can't say I'd be as much of a saint as Dolly Parton, but I sure as hell give it a go. But I know, we all know how you spent $32 million, Bill O'Reilly. You fucking dweeb.
Lose re-election because of COVID. People are not going to forget what they heard and saw this week. They saw a president who could not put out a cogent, intelligent, fact-based message.
Yeah, no, the cogent, intelligent, fact-based messages. We have right now, we have a pandemic of the unvaccinated, and that these are red state people that are dying, and they're literally not taking it because you're not my real dad. You can't tell me what to do. This is an immaturity pandemic, and that's precisely what he said. And in terms of the mask mandates, the only reason there's muddy water about mask mandates is because we have to lie to you assholes and go, all right, we'll all wear masks because we can't trust these assholes to wear theirs if they're not vaccinated because they're gonna lie.
He couldn't do it. Incapable of doing it.
Well, where he couldn't do it is because scientifically, factually, on the ground, the areas where there are gaps in information all come from the fact that Glenn Beck viewers and listeners, and if there is such a thing as a Bill O'Reilly listener or viewer, which I sincerely doubt, all those folks are lying about being vaccinated or refusing to wear masks or get vaccinated because they're children.
And that has caused so many unintended consequences, so much angst, so much bitterness.
That's what it is. Yeah. He's going to lose the angst-ridden vote.
People will remember that. So ironically, both Trump and Biden are one-termers because of COVID.
And you know what's interesting? Let's say that play. Let's roll this out. that Biden's going to be a one-termer because of COVID. Now, the infrastructure bill is going to pass this week. Get used to the idea. And one of the, and I'm not saying that I know that Lindsey Graham is faking COVID, so he doesn't have to vote against it, so he can claim that it was his idea and he would have voted for it if he'd just been there. And it limits, watch for a bunch of people to get like red flu. So they don't, I couldn't be there. I had a thing, so they can cut down on the number of votes against it, so it passes. But this is going to pass. And then they're going to start working on comprehensive immigration reform, and more than likely a variance version of the crime bill into the fall if the crime wave continues. And people are going to look favorably back on what they were lambasting Biden about in terms of the crime bill. And again, we here recognize that the change in incarceration rates was not related hardly at all to elements of the crime bill. It was directly related to VICAP and the fingerprint database going online between 1993 and 1999. And so people couldn't go state to state lying about who they were, raping and murdering and stealing and killing because they'd get caught. Whereas before, they would give their thumbprints, say, I'm Tom Jacobson, and they'd leave the fucking state, and they'd be in a whole other card catalog of fingerprints that someone would physically have to look through. That all changed nationwide in 1993 and went nationwide by 1999. That's when the incarceration rates went up, because people who were committing multiple crimes across multiple states ended up in federal prison and stayed there because they had raped or murdered people in several states. That's it. County jails and state prisons that had nonviolent drug offenders, for example, a good portion of the nonviolent drug offenders were because they knew somebody had killed somebody, but they couldn't get them on anything, so they got them on possession to get them off the streets for 3 years. That changed. But that's not even the vast majority of the people who are... The reason we have a lot of people in prison is because a lot of them got busted because they had committed crimes across multiple states and had murdered, raped, or assaulted people multiple times, had multiple shots, and now are stuck in there. And the other reason is they live a long time. Our prisoners, unlike, say, the Philippines, don't die quickly. So they tend to stack after a while. Think of it as sort of Trump's remain in Mexico policy. It doesn't stop immigration, it just stacks it. And Jimmy Carter did invent the peanut. But once people started taking Jimmy Carter's name in vain, that's when peanut allergies started. I'm just saying. Think about the timing. Chat room. So, but watch by, I'm going to guess January will probably be the launch of the conversation about comprehensive immigration reform. And once that bill that's been sitting around, that's bipartisan, that would totally pass, starts getting legs in the spring, and we're through this wave of Delta and more, and we're at 70% of Americans who can be vaccinated are vaccinated at least once. That will all change in a month. It will be 70% of people who can be vaccinated are fully vaccinated. That's it.
So let me ask you this. You have Kamala Harris.
Let me ask you this. Can you kick my ass?
And I honestly don't think that Joe Biden is going to make it through his whole term. I'm not saying that he's going to die. I'm just saying,
dude, I think you're not going to make it. And first of all, can you someone? I mean, it must be really hard to white balance a camera when Glenn Beck is in frame. But for fuck's sake, you look like Jor-El.
Come on, my son. I am dressed like a tuna fish sandwich you hope will keep for a week. I'm wearing saran wrap over tinfoil. It's a look.
he is so...
And by the way, if any of you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, Jor-El. Remember these suits? They, it's like, Glenn Beck looks like the dinner theater version of the Brando Jor-El if he lets himself go. Dude, I'm just saying, there's a brightness setting on the camera, and fuck it, never mind. Yes, it is the 40th anniversary of MTV, or the 30th anniversary of when it died.
Clearly affected. When I saw him with the Iraqi prime minister this week, I just tried to put myself in the shoes, and listening to him, I tried to put myself in the shoes of the prime minister, and I thought, if I were sitting in that room next to him, I think this guy has no idea what we're really talking. This guy's not in charge of his faculties. So I don't think he's going to make it his full term.
Well, they're aware, by the way, the Iraqi prime minister is aware that he has a stutter and don't have a problem with it. They also deal with genuine lunatics all the time. And they welcome someone who is linguistically hesitant to overstep in certain circumstances. Now, you don't know that or care. And I guess, and I don't know a lot, I know a few Mormons, but not a lot, and mostly in passing. But I don't know, can someone who's a duly designated representative of the Mormon Church let me know if this kind of ageist, ableist bullshit is okay? Because he also doesn't believe this. This is also a lie.
But I can't imagine
this is a sales point.
Kamala Harris being the president. No one, even her own party, no one wanted her as vice president. No one.
Well, apparently they did, because they voted for Biden and by 7 million votes.
Who's going to want her as president?
I see it different.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, 1 second. Who wanted Dick Cheney? Who wanted Dan Quayle? Who would? And you know, look, say what you will about whether or not the rank and file of Democrats are for Kamala Harris based on her policies versus skin color, and have that stupid argument amongst yourselves. But let me put it this way. At no point during the entire election did 9,000 Democrats storm a building she was in yelling, "Hang Kamala Harris." See how that works? At no point did Democrats call for her hanging. So, if we're going to, I mean...
From you, as sometimes happens, I think that Joe Biden will, unless he is physically impaired, make it for 4 years, because that's what the progressive movement wants.
What, they're just going to prop him up like the Weekend at Bernie's? He's fine.
They don't want anyone running the country who has any original thoughts or problem-solving skills. I mean, I'm sure...
Oh my God, Bill's running. He thinks he's got what it takes.
You saw the 5 pillars of the border that came out from Vice President Harris's office. I mean, it was like a third grader. And I'm sorry to demean third.
No, that wasn't the 5. Okay. That was the 5 pillars of the immigration strategy that didn't have anything to do with the border. That was the strategy for the deep roots of the immigration crisis, not the actual once they get to the wall shit. That's a whole other thing. What's the 5th grader level? The only 5th grader level thing going on here, Bill O'Reilly, is your comprehension of concepts. This is fucking moronic. The 5 pillars is specifically about the root causes of the immigration crisis. Now, if they're at the wall and trying to crawl over the wall or under the wall or dig a tunnel or sneak through or whatever, that would be the fruit cause, I guess. If we're going to carry this analogy out, fruit cause, root cause. There's 5 elements of the root cause, got 5 branches of the roots, and then there's lots of fruits. There's fruit cause. God damn, this guy's dumb.
It was like something coming out
Bill, you dumb.
of Miss Crabtree's class in third grade. Oh, we're going to solve all the corruption problems in Central America and Mexico.
No, we're not going to solve them. We have to be aware of them, though. Like Biden said during the Obama administration, when they were technically deporting more people than Trump ever did. Yeah, you thought GDP was the only number where they kicked his ass. I want to say it was the Guatemalans. Pretty sure they were saying, "Hey, we have a corruption problem, and it's largely we have a crime problem down here on the streets, and we don't have any street lights. And because we don't have any street lights, people are getting mugged and all this stuff. And that's one of the reasons why people leave. And they're like, if you give us some money, we'll put up some street lights." And Biden, because he was in charge of that part of it, went, "No, if you need street lights, we will come down and build street lights for you. Let us know where you want them. We'll bring. They're sweet. They're solar. You don't even need to plug them into your grid. They'll have timers built in. We'll show you how to run them. Totally good. No, just give us the money and we'll make them." No. Because the last time we did that, you just spent the money on guns for people to kill natives, indigenous people to the area. So we're a little squeamish about that. Let us know. We'll tell you what. We have a whole warehouse full of solar-powered streetlights. You just give us a call. We'll come on down with the Army Corps of Engineers and some folks, and we'll just stake them into the ground. How about that? We really would like just the cash, though. Well, I'm sorry. Fuck you. That's how that went. But these guys would have just given them the cash.
Sure you are.
We sent...
Right.
Go ahead.
The progressives don't want to solve the border problem, Beck. They don't want to solve it. They want an open border.
Well, I don't know how much control they have over it, though, because, A, there's like 9 of them, and none of them are in the administration. I mean, there's a lot of, like socially forward-looking Democrats in there, which often get mistaken for quote-unquote progressives, but not the ones they're talking about. They mean Marxists. It's all code language. Who, give a shit about people, don't want them kicked out of their homes, that kind of stuff, are trying to find long-term solutions for stuff, may not act fast enough for the activist class, but are clearly trying to solve the problem long-term. Never mind, he was freaking out.
Where anyone can come to the United States because the progressives believe that will lead to socialism.
Yes, we want a bunch of Guatemalans and Venezuelans and other people to flee technically socialist countries to come to the United States to make that here instead of what?
They want. Have a guy.
I know, and which
then why are we letting the people in that are coming across the border and not directly importing the leadership?
A perfect reason why Cuba, we've sent 50 people back to Cuba. We're sending them back. These
Right.
are the people we should be welcoming, but they generally don't.
Well, sometimes we do. We do vet a bunch of them. Not only 50 people came, some folks get their asylum claims listened to. Some folks end up getting the ability to stay. A bunch are sent back. You know why? Because some of them are sent by the Cuban government. You don't know which ones until it's too late. So you got to take care about that kind of shit. You're complaining that we're not doing with Cubans what you want done with like Latino and Mexican immigrants coming across and Hispanic immigrants coming across the southern border.
Support the socialist and democratic policies, and they don't vote for Democrats, generally speaking. And that's, I think, why they're sending them back. And it's an abomination. Biden is basically a pimp. He is pimping.
Basically a pimp right now. I have to say, I have interacted in my life with people who either comedically or like allegorically referred to themselves as pimps. And we would use a phrase we use for pranking someone at some of the comedy open mics was called pimping someone, which is you set them up for a joke that's coming their way or something and make it difficult while they're doing their set. But I'm going to go out on a limb and go, in this triangle of humans, me, Glenn Beck, and Bill O'Reilly, the only person who's actually had any interactions with a genuine pimp, madam, whatever, in that area, I'm going to go with that dude. Because however much it costs you, it's got to be cheaper than $32 million.
Children from South America and from Mexico. He's letting them come over. They are being pimped out. The cartels are getting rich off it. He does.
If they're being pimped out, only if they're staying in Mexico. They're not pimped out once they get here, you asshole. What are you saying about DHS? What are you saying about Customs and Border Patrol that they are what? Capturing 8 and 10-year-olds and selling them for sex, Glenn Beck? Is that what you're saying? Because when the cartels do it and they're human trafficking, they don't get into the United States. They're taken from the border where they've been put in this remain in Mexico zone instead of being protected and overseen by NGOs, and where they're either allowed to stay in the country or they're sent back to their own countries because their asylum claims were either legit or not, with their or being returned to their parents, which is what Biden was talking about doing. But when they just remain in Mexico, that's when they get pimped out. And that was Trump's idea.
Give a flying crap about any of that, nor do anyone in the progressive movement. It's all about power.
Nor does anyone.
It's not about stopping the corruption of the cartels. It's not about making sure that family, women, and children are safe from monsters.
Are protected.
What are you talking? How is forcing them to stay in tent cities on the other side of the border while they're waiting for their asylum claims to be heard? That was Trump's idea. We're rectifying that. That's why the number is up. Because they're finally processing those people. Good Lord.
Obviously. But if you're George
Obviously.
Soros, because he's the big money.
Soros. Oh, man. Wait, hey, Bill. I can't believe it. It's like watching the Olympics. They're coming around and you're like, this dude is certainly going to cross the Super Jew. Soros is behind it all, finish line, and then O'Reilly just comes around the outside and just breaks through the ribbon. I'm so impressed. How do you not? Oh, that's Bill. That was amazing. Yeah, should we invade Mexico? That seems to be the idea. Yeah. Baroness, it is. This is the only thing worse than the fact that these two blithering idiots think their opinions actually matter or chart in any of this stuff is that one of them is paying the other to say it.
Man on this progressive socialist movement. If you're Soros and his minions, and believe me, they are very well organized and well funded.
Oh yeah, they've got. I understand that Soros is so well organized. He has infiltrated some like talk shows and radio programs, and they've got a good front. They put up these big screens with your name on it, and then they do these it looks, the whole thing is sold as a big right-wing venture, but really underneath, it's very insidious.
Who do you want as president? You want
Joe Biden. That's why I voted for him. And as it's playing out the way he's working with people that he agrees with and disagrees with, and is finding a good balance, because that's how democracy goes. Even if I don't get everything I want from his presidency, I am supporting how he's going about it because it looks healthy and a smart use of democracy. And it means you care about democracy as a functioning system of government. So far, he's got my second vote. I'm cool with that. Please continue. $32 million this asshole paid to hide the fact that he raped a woman repeatedly.
You want Joe Biden.
And Glenn Beck thinks you need to hear from him.
Because Biden,
Joe Biden knows it.
Glenn Beck is at his best when he's a rapist delivery system. He's like Jim Jordan, if Jim Jordan was auditioning to be Colonel Sanders.
Joe Biden was the perfect Trojan horse.
Yes. So he's not gonna be removed. He's not gonna leave. The progressives and the media, corporate media, will support him to the end because he's not going to solve one single problem. Nothing. He's not.
He's not going to solve one single problem. One single problem. Oh, I almost forgot. Sorry. If I may. Now, one single problem. I would like everyone watching to go through their mind, just think back if you must. And I know it's full of scar tissue and you've blanked out most of it, It was like a 4-year stupor we all went through. At what point did you see President Trump sends immigration bill to Congress? I don't mean signs something they sent him and sends it back or vetoes it. I mean sends immigration bill to Congress. At any point, was there a bill drafted by the administration? Anybody? Please find me one. Maybe there is one. But you know what there isn't? There isn't an immigration bill that was sent by Trump to Congress. Not ever, not once. Was there any type of bill, and the White House churns out these kind of things. I will wait. Maybe you guys can come back tomorrow, trolls. Find one. Find any news where Donald Trump sent his own bill crafted by the administration. Not a list of wants and desires and shit like that. Nothing. An actual fucking bill they drafted. But, sorry, you were saying, Bill O'Reilly, and we're almost done with this, and then I gotta let you go. I'm way over time, but it was nice. I missed you guys this weekend. I feel like after the Nerd Halen show, it felt like 100 years had passed since I'd done a live stream. That's just how it works.
Solve violent crime. He's going to surround gun stores. Oh, yeah, okay.
He's going to surround gun stores to solve violent crime. You know who's, let's just follow him on this. If Biden surrounds gun stores, you know who's going to be able to go into that gun store, buy a gun, and walk out with that gun? Lawful gun owners. They are not going to have a problem. If you are a legal gun owner and you're just stockpiling for Armageddon, and you're not on a terrorist watch list, or you're not straw purchasing stuff, or you're not filing serial numbers off and selling junk guns or ghost guns, on the street in Chicago, you're not going to have a problem. Ever. And they're not surrounding gun stores. They're just checking. They're just going to crack down on the gun stores that are selling junk guns and ghost guns to murderers. That's what's going to happen. That's not surrounding gun stores. There aren't going to be jackbooted thugs. That Bill O'Reilly, by the way, by his assertion about this, is assuming that, of course, true patriots, if they ever came to the gun store to buy their gun stuff, and the guns and their magazine gun clipping American Patriot gun mags, and they went there to buy more bullets to water the Tree of Liberty, that if they saw a bunch of jackbooted thugs standing in a circle around the place, they wouldn't just assume the place is being robbed and there was some sort of hostage situation going on. No, they would just assume that this is Biden's America and they're trying to take away our Second Amendment rights. And like good patriots, Bill O'Reilly thinks they should open fire on police officers because they're attempting to stop illegal sales of guns to people who shouldn't legally have them. Murderers and rapists.
Not going to solve the border. He's not going to solve inflation and Soros and progressive.
Yeah, no, you're right. Biden is not going to solve inflation. The inflation will self-correct because supply chains will open back up again as the society begins to open as we get through this Delta wave. He's not going to solve inflation. What the Fed is going to do is try to not make it worse.
Want the economy to tank because when the economy
no, he doesn't want the economy to tank, which is just dumb.
Tanks, the federal government has to move in and run the economy, which is what socialism is. So this is
yeah, but he doesn't want that. And by the way, none of even the democratic socialists want that. That's why they're not democratic socialists, but don't get me started.
All very logical. Biden is the perfect guy for the progressive movement. And it's so clear to me what is happening.
Well, that's because you've got brain fog.
And it's infuriating to me. Mm-hmm. And I just wonder how many of the 80 million plus Americans who pull the lever for Joe Biden are regretting it now. Even if you despise and hate Donald Trump, do you not?
I am not regretting it. And I do despise and hate Donald Trump, mainly because of his actions as a human being.
Not see the destruction, where we're headed here?
Where are we headed, Bill?
Do you not see the dead people in the streets of our major cities?
Wait a minute. Do you not see the dead people? Sorry, run that by me again?
See the dead people in the streets of our major cities? Do you not see millions of foreign nationals coming into the United States, many of whom have COVID? Do you not?
No. By the end of this year, we're looking at like 1.1 to 1.2 million people crossing the border illegally. All of them, but a small amount, will be turned away. They cross the border, but they don't stay. If they have COVID, they're tested and then they're isolated. As a matter of fact, we're vaccinating with Johnson & Johnson most of these assholes. They're going home safer than when they snuck across. The dead people in the streets of America. Jesus Christ, man. Look, crime is up because is way up because it was way down. Statistics are statistics. Overall, like murder is up, but compared to last year a lot. But crime in general is down. Play all the videos of people like in San Francisco barging into stores and stealing shit, and it's great viral video. But statistically, it's not a fucking blip any more than road rage videos mean that our roads don't work anymore. If you put on a slow speed chase or a high speed chase even, or a medium, I guess, the Goldilocks chase, somewhere in between, the car chase that's just right. And you drive, you watch this on the news, and it's in one of the big urban centers. Los Angeles, it's a Detroit, it's a Chicago, New York. And then you go outside and drive to work. You're not, holy fuck. Is that guy around? Statistically, you know that the amazing and exciting and scary and dangerous high speed or medium speed or slow speed chase that you saw on the news is not affecting normal traffic in your area. You know what is? Accidents. Normal shit. So wear your seatbelt and go to fucking work. Christ almighty.
Acknowledge any of that?
Well, no, Glenn. Not because it's we're afraid of the truth. No one's acknowledging it because it's bullshit. Thank you, Bill O'Reilly and Glenn Beck, for showing us all, and I think making us all feel a lot better about our prospects in 2022.